loves. Another vulnerable live stream. I love owning my shit on Facebook. So yeah, I just wanted to share an experience that I had the other night. And the communication around it. And so it's experience with a man, obviously, who didn't do what he said he was gonna do. And it triggered me. And I really identified and looked at how I process things differently than I would have in the past. And I showed up differently as to how I would have done in the past. So I think this is really important for me to share, just to speak some truths about the differences between men and women. And in my experience is what I've noticed, right? Between men and women. Hey loves who've just jumped on. I love seeing all your beautiful faces come up. I'm going to turn the comments off for now. And just how we think differently, right? How we think differently. So I'll give you a little bit of a pre-frame of the situation. So I've been connecting with this guy, I don't know, like the last sort of couple of weeks, and I took a little bit of space because I was really unsure about the connection, and I asked him if he would just give me some space, and if because I really need to think about what I want out of this connection. And I knew I didn't want a relationship. I was really, really clear with that. And it was really deciding, do I want him to be my tantra body, where I can practice some of my rituals and practices with him, or I don't know if I wanted to date him, but it was really interesting that I say that now, because some of the expectations that I had was more than a tantra body, right? And we were just all feeling that out. So it was on Sunday I caught up with him. Now, first of all, we were supposed to catch up Sunday night for a good period of time so I could catch up with him and express to him, these are my boundaries. Basically, I worked out what my boundaries are in this connection, what I'm open to exploring with him, and for him to be able to feel into that and then make a decision if that's a fit for him, basically, and see if he's open to that. And so the first thing was that he had to change the plans of us catching up because his plans had changed with his friend's birthday, right? And so I was actually okay with that at first, because I totally get that these things happen. I said, yeah, that's cool. How about we just meet for a short period of time, and I can go through some of these things, and we can just see where we're at. So that was fine. And then we decided that he was going to come over. I think it was Tuesday morning. Yeah, Tuesday morning he was going to come over because I was going to do a cock de-armoring on him. So this is one of the practices that I'm exploring. That's a whole other live stream. And then in the morning he had to cancel because he had to go and fix, I don't know, a mate's pipe had burst or something. I don't know, some man's. No, just had to go fix some stuff. Not, as men do, like to fix things. And I was like, okay, yeah, totally get it. That's fine. These things happen. I've got other stuff that I can do. And then he's like, I hope I see you at yoga tonight. So my friend runs this yoga class, and you often go to this yoga, and that's how we've connected, right? It's through yoga, through my friend. And so basically I said to him, I won't be at yoga tonight because I got a client, but I literally live around the corner from yoga, my friend's yoga studio. And so I said, how do you want to pop over after yoga? And so this is where the problems began, right? His message to me was, yeah, I'll see how I feel after yoga and I'll send you a message. Okay. In my head, I had suddenly started to dream up about what was going to happen. That he would come over, and then, we could explore some stuff, and that, he was probably going to get laid. In my head, I was imagining this stuff, right? And so all day it had kind of been in the back of my mind, and let him know, but he's got no idea. I had no idea that I'm having these thoughts, right? We haven't even been connected for the last 2 weeks because I needed some time, and so he's got no clue that this is going on in my head. I'm imagining that he should know that if he comes over, he's going to get laid, right? It's like, of course he'll want to come over, like, hello. Anyway, it gets to like, so I said I'll be finished with my client at 8:15, so, you can come over after 8:15. So yoga is at 6:15. Finishes like 7:30, and I'm like, okay, well, obviously, like, he'll be done and whatever. Anyway, it rolls around to, it's like now 10 to 9, and he still hasn't messaged me. And I'm like, so I'm starting to get like, I'm sure yoga would be finished by now. Like, I'm starting to get this feeling of not feeling, like a bit of disappointment and a bit of like being let down and a bit of like, obviously like a bit of story around not feeling important. That kind of stuff was starting to come. Anyway, so what I'm also aware of is that these couple of things is that often women will tend to assume that men are misbehaving. And we create these things in our minds that it means something about us, or that they must be doing something that's not as, like, I'm not as important, or I'm not a priority, and like creating these stories about what that person might be up to, right? The other thing that I know, and I literally only just remembered this morning, was that men will talk in possibilities and women will take it in plans and promises. So he didn't say, I will see you tonight after yoga, I'll come over after yoga. He said, I'll see how I feel after yoga and I'll message you, right? But in my head, I went into this romantic dreaming. Now, this isn't a really small scale, right? Really small scale. We have bigger scales though. Like, basically, we can romantic dream a whole relationship and we're only on the first date, right? I mean, how many people here have romantic dream? Like, you've met someone and you're already planning like your next 2-3 months, years together. They're the possibilities, right? And you create this expectation that this person is going to somehow meet your needs. So I had this expectation, I'm like, he's a guy, of course he's going to come over, he's probably going to get laid, of course he's going to come, like, of course, right? And then I had this little thing of, well, maybe he won't. Like, I was like, no, of course. Now, so I'd set myself up for this, right? I set myself up for this. And so I set myself up for this disappointment. This is why I called this live stream, when a man doesn't show up in the way you expect him to show up, rather than when he said that he hasn't done something he said he's going to do. Because he actually hadn't said that that's what he's going to do, right? So in the back of my mind, I know that I'm assuming that he's misbehaving. And I was like, EJ, he hasn't actually done anything. He hasn't done anything. Except the fact that he hadn't messaged me, right? This is the point. I was like, yeah, but he said he'd message me and he hasn't messaged me, right? And now it's getting late and, and I'm probably not going to get what I want met, right? And so I ended up messaging him, and the first thing I said was, instead of being like, why the fuck haven't you messaged me? Which was like, the old me, this is what the old me would have been like, fuck you, like, you said you were going to message me and you haven't messaged me. Like, this is what I would have been thinking in my head. And why haven't you messaged me? I'm obviously not that important to you. Like, if you said, you said you're going to message me, you're out of integrity, you're not showing up, right? and then this is wondering, well, is he even going to message me, right? And this is when the stories start to happen. And this is common, right? I'm not the only one this happens to. This happens to a lot of women in particular. I'm sure it happens to men too, but so I end up sending him this message, and the message said, I'm imagining that there's a really good reason for why I haven't heard from you yet. All right? Because in part of me, it's like, well, I want to make other plans. Like, if he's not going to come over, I'm going to do other stuff, right? However, the other thing that was in my space was that he'd now cancelled or changed plans twice in the last few days. So I was feeling this kind of energy of like, you're not showing up energy, right? Even though I wasn't really bothered by the last couple of times, it was like feeling like it was kind of like an add-on, I guess. And then I said, like, what's really important to me is being in integrity with your word, and for me to feel safe in connection. This is what I need, right? So he called me at like 9 o'clock, right? And he basically said, I think what he said now, something along those, oh, my phone was in the car, I've been at yoga talking to my friend for that whole time, didn't realize what the time was, rah, rah, rah. Now, I'm triggered at this stage, so like I don't really give a fuck what your excuses are. I was like, I just want you to own it, right? Like, I was just like, don't give me an explanation, just own the fact that you didn't call me when you said, you messaged me when you said you were going to message me, right? And so I was a bit standoffish, and I was like, oh, like, I feel like this energy of wanting to pull away, right? And I said that to him. I said, yeah, like, because there's this part of me that could have been like, yeah, it's totally fine. Don't worry about it. These things happen. It's all good. But that wasn't true for me. That's not how I was feeling. Like, I wasn't like, that would be me denying how I'm actually feeling. I'm also was aware that I was triggered and that I'm in my reptilian brain and I probably couldn't have a conversation right then and there. But what I really needed was just this ownership piece of, yeah, I'm really sorry that I didn't message you when I said I'd message you, right? And so, but what happened was he then turned it around and was like, well, you know, I'm being on this emotional roller coaster with you, la, la, la. And I was like, hang on a minute, don't you put that back on me, don't you dare. If you want to trigger a woman more, like, go put something back on her. Which there is an ownership piece for me in this, by the way, because, you know, I did ask for space from him, and then we've been conversating about what this connection is, and do we want to explore stuff? What are the boundaries around that? And I've been very like, this is the thing, right? I said, this is called being a woman. 1 minute, I'm not sure about the connection. The next minute, I want to see the new sexy photos. The next minute, you know, I'm deciding that I can only do these certain things with you. Like, it's like, literally, being a woman is like being on an emotional roller coaster so often. But I'm very big on communicating about that, around how I'm feeling and where I'm at and what my boundaries are and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, I know there's an ownership piece for me in there, but I'm not ready to go into ownership yet. You need to hear, I want to be heard first, and I want you to like apologize. And then I'll be ready to go in ownership. Then I'll be ready to say like, hey, yeah, like I get that, you know, this has been a bit confusing. And how can we make agreements around that, like going forward around our communication and things like that, right? So, but I'm not ready, like as a woman, I'm not ready to go into that yet. I'm not ready to own my shit until you've heard me, because I don't feel safe right now. So basically what I was wanting was this, you know, ownership, right? And that if both people were triggered, that's really hard, right? So what he ended up saying was, because I was almost like, no, don't you put that back on me. Like I can't, and I said like, I can't take that. I know there's an ownership piece for me in here, but I can't do that right now. But I'm happy to chat to you tomorrow and hear your point of view and share about it. And ultimately, all I wanted to do was come around and apologize and give me a hug, and it was all good. Would have been all good. Like, it was like, but I didn't ask for that either. I didn't say, hey, like what I really need. I wasn't really clear. And this is another piece, is like often we won't speak up for what we really need. And this is the good question for a man to ask is, what do you need right now? What do you need to feel safe? What would support you right now, right? So I didn't fully ask for what I wanted and what I needed, because there was a piece of a fear, like of rejection or something in there, because he was like, oh, I've got to start work at 5 a.m. the next day, la, la, la. So I was like, oh, well, of course he's not going to come and see, of course he's not going to come and see me now. Like, I'd already made this decision in my head. So isn't it interesting how often, like, I'm already making decisions in my head of how things are going to be without that piece of like, well, what I really love is this. So yeah, but there was this piece of me of this ownership of, yeah, I'm triggered and I can't actually have this conversation right now. But I'm open to really hearing tomorrow and really like having a conversation tomorrow. And, you know, he said, yeah, I'll send you a message. I'll call you tomorrow. Right. He's like, I need to sleep on it. I need to think about it, blah, blah. So, yeah, and so I was actually okay with that. Although in the back of my head, I was like, he's just going to try and find a good excuse. Like, this is the misbehaving, like this unconscious thing that we have as women, that somehow men are misbehaving because they don't show up like women. As soon as you don't do what I would do in that situation, then somehow it means you're misbehaving, right? So I've done a lot of exploring of this in my life, of like looking at like where I assume that a man is misbehaving when actually he's just being a man. This is a big part of the work that I do and really passionate about. So looking back, I would probably do things slightly differently, and I did own that I was in a story. I did say, hey, look, I'm in a story. I know this isn't real. I know that I'm just telling myself a story that not important enough, but I know that's a story, and I'm looking at it and I'm processing it, and I really own that instead of like projecting. But I knew that like I was not like my energy, and I said, you know, I feel like I'm wanting to pull away, but I really still want to like connect with you tomorrow, right? There's also this piece I wanted to speak to about testing. Especially in the early stages of a connection, is women test men, and it's not conscious. Mostly it's not conscious. And we don't know that we're doing it, but we're testing to see, are you going to be there? Are you going to be a good provider and a good protector? Yeah. Sorry, I'm seeing a couple of comments here. I'm going to come back to them, I promise. Okay, because I'm going to get off track here. So it's like this unconscious testing, like, and so I feel like I was testing a little bit with that, and when I reflected, I was like, oh shit, I've totally just been testing. But at the same time, it says, you know, is that man going to be there for me? Is he going to support me? And it's so funny because one of my boundaries was, I don't want you to be my support person because I don't want a relationship with you. But then I expected him to show up for me, right? And yeah. So this is all the stuff that I'm like really exploring, right? And so it's really interesting when you self-reflect on how you show up. I love it. All right. So anyway, yesterday, didn't hear from him all day. And I finally get a text last night. And the text was basically like, and usually he's a really good caller, so he usually calls and doesn't text. But it was basically saying that he has a lot of commitments right now and doesn't want to like continue the connection, which I actually am totally fine with. If anything, like I feel like for me to be in any sort of connection with a man, I need him to be really self-responsible and to actually pick up the phone and have a conversation about what happened, and to clear that conversation and say, this is my part in it, this is my part in it, how can we make agreements going forward? And some men are not mature enough to do that, and same with women. Like, not, you know, I've done a lot of conscious communication work, and you know, even then I don't get it perfect, right? Even then, as you're seeing, right? But the thing is that it's about owning our parts in it, but allowing ourselves to be in our and process the triggers and then come back together. So what I processed was this not important, and I just needed to self-soothe. You know, it's just my little girl that got triggered, my little 2 or 3 year old that got a little bit triggered and wanted a hug. Really, that's all it was. So yesterday I wanted to express that to him and say, hey, like, this is what came up for me. My little girl got triggered, and I realized that I was in a total expectation, and I went into disappointment because you weren't going to meet that expectation, and I realized that I totally created it in my head. This kind of thing, right? Like I could own that piece. And then obviously the ownership would be on him to just own and say, yeah, I realized I didn't message you when I said I was going to message you, right? And, you know, integrity and presence is so important for me personally, but I know for a lot of women and a man, it's really key. Like to be a man of your word and to be present is really important because it builds trust. And if you don't have trust, you don't have safety. And for me, I actually, and this message he sent to me was like, I'm sorry, I can't give you the trust that you need. And I actually am okay with that because I, you know, wasn't feeling 100% safe. going into the connection. And if anything, I actually feel really good about not continuing. And so, and from that point also is, so the old me, I'm just trying to find this piece I want to share around convincing. The old me that had a lot more kind of rejection, abandonment stuff going on, because he had said he didn't continue, the old me probably would have tried to convince him, right? But I actually know this is not an alignment. I know that my standards for what I require in a connection is a man that's willing to be self-responsible and willing to have the conversation, not send me a text about it, right? And is willing to say, hey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happened. Let's clear what happened. Let's look at our parts in it. And if I don't have that, I don't have safety and I don't have trust. And I'm not going to chase someone or convince someone or win someone over. Like, that's not an alignment, right? And I see this so often, is like, if we have rejection, abandonment wounds, so often if we feel someone pull away, we will try to win them over. And I've recently been through this experience with the next lover who did pull away, and I did go into like, oh, I'm gonna have to win him over now. And the great thing about it was it brought up a lot of these wounds for me to clear and heal, and it's just such a gift in the connection, right? So basically what I would have done with the conversation, had we had the conversation yesterday, what I would have done is I would have owned my piece in it, and then I would have talked about, what do I need? Okay, what do I need to feel safe? And, you know, would have looked something like, you know, that you show up and you message me when you say you're going to message me. And if you can't, you let me know that you can't, or you'll call me or whatever. If for some reason you can't show up, give me as much notice as possible. But also, let's be aware of how each other works, because he has kids and work that is, you know, on and off, and some days he might have to work last minute, right? And so understanding how each other works is really good too, and understanding that, you know, we're all not always going to be available and things like that. So it's also like making agreements around that as well, and how can we show up with each other. So the other piece too is there's acknowledgement, you know, acknowledging each other as well, and I wanted to acknowledge him for how he had respected some of my boundaries, and honoring where I'm at, basically. So I think that's all I feel to speak to on that. There is more, but I'm just not sure if it's relevant. But I kind of want to piece it together a little bit. Let me piece it all together, and I want to come back to your comments. Is that when a man doesn't show up how you think he should have shown up, or how he said he wanted to show up, the first thing you want to check in with is, have I put an expectation here? Is there an expectation, or have I created something in my mind of how I think something's going to work out? Have I gone into a romantic dream, right? And if he hasn't messaged me or he hasn't shown up how I want him to show up, am I assuming that he's misbehaving? Am I coming from this place of, oh, he must be doing something wrong, or it means something about me? Am I making it personal, right? Because most of the time, men can be very like focused, and sometimes they're so focused on what they're doing that they lose track of time, right? So it's exactly what was going on for him. And then if you get triggered, it's like going into owning that trigger and looking at, okay, what is the story that I'm telling myself? Is it that I'm not important, that he doesn't care about me, that I'm not wanted, that he's choosing that thing over me, he's choosing work over me? Like, what are the stories that you're telling yourself? And underneath that, what am I feeling, right? What am I feeling? Like, is it frustration? Is it anger? Is it disappointment? And allowing yourself to feel whatever's there, whether you go punch some pillows, scream into a pillow, or allow yourself to feel and name the feelings of, I'm feeling disappointed, and breathing those in and acknowledging them, instead of going to do something that might distract or be a coping mechanism, or might be a numbing, right? So being aware that this trigger that's being brought up in you is something that needs to be loved, right? Because it's and then going into self-soothing, right, and reassuring, and giving yourself the words of comfort that you're probably longing to hear from that person. right? That you're wanting to, you know, things like I'm here for you, you're safe, I love you, you know, those kind of words. It helps also, I like to use a mirror with that as well, to look into a mirror and give yourself those words. Because so often we're expecting other people to do that for us, right? And then the piece to speak to is from this place is to have a conversation and ask for what you need. And if that person is not available to meet your needs, the second piece to that is to ask them, what do you need to meet my needs, basically? Like, is there something that you need from me? So for him, it probably would have been time. I need time. I need time to process this. I need time to think about it. And that's basically what we did. Like, he's just like, I need to sleep on it. And I was like, okay, cool, we totally got it. And I wasn't trying to like shove stuff down his throat. I wasn't trying to like convince him. Like, I was like, yeah, that's totally fine for you to sleep on it. And then once both people have had their space and have come and have processed what they need to process, then you have this conversation. You have this conversation where you talk about, this is what came up for me. This is the story I was telling myself. This is what I was feeling. And what I really was needing was this. And what's really important to me and what my values are is this. Because when you show up in this way, and this is what I would have said, when you show up and you own that part, and when you commit to showing up differently, so this is the piece too, is like making the amends. You know, it's like when you say sorry, it means that you're going to make an amends to do something differently. If you say sorry and you keep doing it, then there's no point in saying sorry because you don't really mean it, right? So you say sorry and you make an amends. And you make an amends to say, you know what, from now on, this is how I'm going to show up with you. And if I can't do that for whatever reason, like, I'm going to commit to communicating as much as possible with you about that, and making a re-agreement or a re-amendment, right? And sometimes we might just need a reassurance, right? We might need something to feel reassured that this person still cares for us. It was still important, like this kind of thing. So this really communication is so important. And if you don't have these conversations, if you in some kind of partnership or even friendship, and you are not having these conversations after some kind of conflict or trigger, you're going to build resentment. Okay, you're going to build up and you're going to build up, and that's long term. That is going to lead to more triggering and more disconnection, right? So this is why the vulnerable conversation is so important, because it builds connection. Now, he made a choice to tap out, and that's okay. Like, that's not a level of maturity that I want in a man. Like, it's for me to connect, especially intimately. It's needing, and you know, maybe he'll need more time to process, and it might be another few days, and he might reconnect. I don't know. I'm open to having the conversation. Definitely open to having a conversation about it. But I'm not going to try and convince, or like, because that would be giving my power away as well. It's like I'm not going to convince, and I see this so often happening. So it's like staying in your power as well with that. Yeah. Okay. So that's the main pieces with that. And I will also add the wording here around, if a man hasn't shown up, have you expected to show up? Is the wording that you can text or say is, I'm imagining there's a really good reason for why you haven't ... or why I haven't heard from you. I'm curious to know what that is and having a chat about it. You know, so this provides a space for a man, and man needs to know that he's going to feel safe connecting with you, that you're not going to like cut him down and chop his balls off, basically. He needs to know that when he talks to you, that it's going to be safe for him to express what's going on. And this is a great way to get to know him, because instead of him being in defense, he's like, oh, this is what was going on for me, right? And in the meantime, process your trigger. Not like I did. I did not process it fully yet before he spoke. So that's why I couldn't really have the conversation yet. So yeah. Anyway, I hope that all makes sense. Okay, let me check the comments if you guys have any questions. Okay. Right. Okay. I know, Siobhan, you had a question that I'm going to answer as well. Okay. So the question was, I wrote the notes somewhere here. it was, oh, how to get a guy to call you instead of text you. Okay, so you need to give it a purpose. I know you already know this, hun, but it might be good for other people to listen. If a guy texts me, excuse me, and I actually want to talk to him on the phone about something, especially if it's important, right, because text can get really misconstrued, is it's basically like saying, like, I'd love to chat about this on the phone with you because I'd love to really hear what you have to say, right? So it's coming from, like, I'm wanting to hear you, right? Yeah, and be able to share with you. That would make me feel really happy and safe. And so you've got to add this make me feel piece onto it, because that gives it more of a purpose. You know, and I know there's men out there that, and women, men and women, there's people, humans out there that don't really like talking on the phone, right? And so maybe there's agreements that can be made around that. Maybe it's a certain time, a time limit you might have on the phone. Instead of it being like hours, maybe it's like 10 minutes. You know, I'd love to chat. You know, I just need 10 minutes of your time. When are you available? That's the other piece you want to add, is like, when are you available? When's a good time to chat? So that he can be fully present, right? Okay, right. I'm getting through these comments. Okay, swiping. How do you know he has no clue? Maybe he knows exactly what he's doing. The reason why I knew that he didn't have any idea about, no, it's not about what he's doing. It's about what I had, the concept of this romantic dream of what was going to happen when he came over. He didn't know that. It was because it was a romantic dream in my head about what we were going to do. He had no idea. And by the way, we actually haven't had sex. So in my head, I was like, yeah, we're totally going to sleep with him. And like, the last conversation was about me taking things slow. But that was not what my pussy wanted that day. This is what I mean about being a woman. It's like, oh no, I take things slow. Oh no, now I'm going to send you sexy photos. So yeah, he had no idea. He wouldn't have known. I imagine that he wouldn't have known. But again, it's an imagining. Unless we don't know unless we ask. And I didn't give him any clues at all to lead to that, actually. Okay. I keep asking you questions. This is fun. I love having questions. Okay, so Callum, you said, this has happened to me so many times before, except I'm a man and it's a woman that doesn't show up. Yeah, it goes both ways, right? Like, I'm talking from my experience, and yeah, for sure, it can definitely go both ways. It's just what I think it's about getting really clear on what you value in a relationship, and also what's really important too is to look at the reflection as well. So it's like, if someone's not showing up, where aren't you showing up, right? So this is, again, for me, it's like, I mean, I wasn't showing up for the last 2 weeks. But like in other areas of your life as well, not necessarily with that person, but where are you not showing up? And then there's also, if we could get into this, will be a whole other live stream, is like, there's a lot of childhood shit that can be playing out around, like, not feeling like you've shown up for, you know, not your parent that wasn't available, and you're trying to, like, you're repeating that to heal it, basically. But if you choose to. Okay. That's a whole other, I will do another live stream on that soon. It doesn't sound like he was intending to trigger you. Yeah, totally was not intending to trigger me at all. Yeah, it's a man. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a human thing, Callum, around, as a man, you can say that men do have this compulsion to justify our actions and not own up to our mistakes. I think that's a human thing. I don't think it's a man or woman thing. I think it's like, you know, it takes a lot to be responsible for our shit, basically. And I mean, I know responsibility is where the empowerment is. So for me, I'm committed to being responsible and looking at myself. But sometimes we're not in a space, because if we're triggered, then it's really hard to be responsible when you're triggered, because you want to be right, and you want to be seen, and you want to be heard, and you want to be like held. And you know, in that space, it's like, oh, so hard to be responsible. But then you can be responsible once you've got out of that stuff and you've been heard and you feel safe. Then it's like, okay, now I can look at my shit. right? Okay. If you've admitted that being a woman is an emotional... okay, I'm trying to read it all. I can't see all of your comment, Guy Bill. Sorry, I can only see a little bit. I mean, I was half-heartedly saying being a woman is like an emotional coaster, but we tend to, our emotions, the feminine, the way we feel is different. Men and women feel differently. I mean, men and women are just as emotional as each other, but we process our emotions differently. Like women, we process our emotions really fast. I love that there's this video I was watching, and it talked about how the way the brains are wired is that a woman can process her emotions like a rocket ship, and a man processes his emotions like a horse and cart carrying a rock. It tends to take a lot longer. It's just how the brains are wired. But as women, it's very hard for us to understand that, because if we don't know that fact that we're so different, then we'll assume that the man should have processed his shit by now. It's like, geez, you're taking so long. Like, I processed it like 10 hours ago and you're still thinking about it. And what it might look like to us is that you're not thinking about it at all, right? So, for example, like, I might process something, and a guy might go off to work, he might hang with his mates, like, and I'm like, you're not even dealing with this. Like, you're not even dealing. You're just off doing your own thing, and here I am in my emotional shit and processing stuff like you're avoiding. And sometimes that might be true, right? That might be true. But a man processes things very differently, and he has to go into like this filing cabinet in his brain to process stuff. And so we just have to be patient as a woman. We have to get our own like kind of masculine on and be patient. Yeah. So, what else? Let me see. Yeah, integrity and respect. Yeah, Deb, I find it a full-time job not to go into a story with a man about the whole thought process I go through in my head when I feel triggered. Okay, yeah, I love that. I can't read all your comment, but yeah, cool. Sometimes what's best also with a conversation about what came up for you is to talk about just the important things. It's like, this is what I need, right? This is what I need to feel safe, instead of going into the whole story of it. Like, it depends on what your connection is, and as well, and also the communication styles as well. Yeah, it's like letting go of the stories. It's like catching ourselves. I'm just reading, Dawn, I'm just reading your comment. It's like catching the stories that we're telling ourselves about men as well. Yeah. Hello. What can a man do to be more of when a woman needs him, like you described? So to be more aware is to, you can know when a woman's going into stuff coming up, into her emotional stuff. And the question is, what do you need? What do you need? I'm here. What do you need? Yeah, and just check his own self too. And because sometimes it's really hard for a man to be there in the face of a woman's strong emotions, because a man will take these on personally and make himself wrong and internalize it very often. And so it's very hard for a man not to take it personally. So it's like standing there in the face of that and not taking it personally, and just being like, I'm here, what do you need? Because most of the time it's not even about you. Yeah. Yeah, okay, what else? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay, awesome. Yeah, we think, so it's just checking in with ourselves to go, am I assuming that he's misbehaving? And do I really know that this is what he's doing? Now, let me speak to this piece. There's healthy men and there's unhealthy men. And there's healthy women and there's unhealthy women. So there are men out there, and women, but I'm talking about men right now, that are liars and sociopaths and narcissists and do literally lie about what they're doing and where they've been and who they're hanging with, and the reasons why they're not showing up is because they're actually misbehaving. So you obviously need to this kind of person will not respect boundaries and often will not be willing to have a conversation about it where they will not be self-responsible, right? So that for me would be a red flag if they're not going to respect boundaries, or they are not going to have the conversation and be responsible about it and look at their part in it, right? Okay. Any more questions? I think it's due to the male thought boxes. Yeah, totally, Anthony. I love that. It takes time to take each one out, look at it, and then put it back. Yeah, it's like the boxes in the hair, like the filing cabinet. Let me look at this file, and oh, yep, and let me put that. Yeah. Hey, Zulu. Yeah, kia ora. Okay. If they're unsure about what they need, what strategies do you use for people to not make it about them? Okay, that's a really good question. So you're talking about the woman not sure about what they need? I mean, this ultimately is about what I would be, is it cultivating a relationship with self first, you know, and being able to meet their own needs first. And so this is, I was talking to the point of self-soothing before, and being able to connect in and self-soothe and to cultivate that healthy relationship of being able to hold ourselves first without relying on the other person to meet our needs. Yeah, and so I use two phrases for people to use, which is, I'm in my story that, and I'm telling myself that. So when you're making it personal, it's like you're putting that phrase in front of, like, say the wording is, he doesn't care about me, or she's angry at me. It's putting the phrase of, I'm telling myself that. And so what this does is helps to get out of the reptilian brain and into the frontal lobe, so that it's more logical. And breathing, like the main thing, the first thing is deep breaths, deep belly breaths, to get into the parasympathetic nervous system. So yeah, so breaths is I actually didn't mention that when I talked about triggers. So yeah, that's the first thing, is deep breathing. Yeah. Last question, love it. What do I do if I ask a woman what she needs and by doing so I've failed her test? As she believes I should already know. Oh, Callum, that is a great question. That's a great question, because yeah, I hear that all the time. It's like, well, you know, he should just know. He should just know what I need. Right? Yeah. Sometimes I think underneath that is this unwillingness for a woman to be vulnerable and ask for what she needs, because there might be a rejection piece under there. So, first of all, know that you haven't failed. You can't read minds. And ladies, please, watching this, please let go of the thought that men can read our minds, because they can't. And men, let go of the thought that you need to read her mind. So, let me just feel into the best way to answer this. I'm feeling like the piece around this is, yeah, okay. Then there's like an apology piece of, if you've done something that has actually, her feelings are hurt, even if you think like she's way overreacting and she shouldn't feel that way. By the way, never say that to a woman, that she shouldn't feel that way. That is just a way that will make her trigger more. Is to say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. Right? I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. And this is like a generosity, right? This is a generosity to help this will help calm her down, and diffuse her, right? It's to say, I'm sorry I hurt your feelings. How can I support you, right? So how can I support you right now might be better than what do you need, right? Is a better way of saying it. Or is there anything you need? How can I support you right now? Yeah, thank you for that question. And I had an ex-lover who would say to me, and this has actually worked for me quite well, he's like, you know, he would say, I don't know how to help you right now, but I'm here. You know, I don't know what you need, but I'm here. Especially if I didn't know, like, he'd be like, what do you need? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. He's like, okay, I don't know what to do about that, but I'm here. You know, so it's just that I needed to know that he was here and he was in a calm space, you know, not projecting back onto me. Yeah. So it's like a presence is really, really important, just to be like, I'm here. Yeah. And if you can just be there and be present and just hear her, and hear everything that she's going off about without making it about you, without trying to fix her, without any of the usual stuff that you probably want to do, that will diffuse her so that you can actually have a really calm conversation with her once she's let it all out. Safety. Creating safety is the key. You create safety by hearing her. Yeah, thank you, Zulu. Safety is safety is like the foundation of every relationship. So many people look on like, how can we spice things up in this relationship? It's like, no, how can we create safety? Because from the safety is where the novelty will come and the fun. When we feel safe to explore. Okay, so I think this is all I need to share right now. Let me know if anyone has any more questions. I've told him 1,000 times. Yeah, he should know by now. But sometimes we really have told you guys 1,000 times. I love it. Yeah, that's beautiful, Zulu. That's beautiful. I love it. I love it. It's so beautiful. There's, you know what? There is work. There's some great teachings out there. Actually, while I'm here, I am running a 2-day workshop for men and for women with Aaron Kleinerman, who's an amazing. He teaches men how to be better leaders and better lovers. We're running a 2-day workshop in Byron Bay on the 28th and 29th of October, and we're going to be exploring all of this stuff, like how to help a woman feel safe, and and conscious communication tools, and this is for singles and couples. Yeah, so we're exploring all these different things. So I'll put the link up here and you can have a look. It's going to be amazing. So you can start, and you'll be able to practice this, right? So with real people, and learning how to love each other and have more conscious communication with each other. And also there's another retreat that I'm facilitating at and supporting with Dave McDermott and Helena Nista. That one's in May. That's, I think, 4 days, 24th to the 27th of May. So I'm going to be working with the woman there. So I'll also put a link up to that as well. That's also in Byron Bay, I believe. I should know that. Yeah. And of course, if you're not in the area, you can reach out to me if you want to get some further support, coaching around any of this. This is what I love to explore, and I'm really good at other people's stuff. Like, I can see my own stuff, but I'm really, really super good at actually giving you the tools for your own stuff as well, for your own relationships and relating. Yeah. All right, loves, I'm really going to go now because this has been an extra long live stream, but obviously it was important. I'm really grateful for everyone that's tuned in, and yeah, we'll chat soon. Bye. Thanks.